Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast to the protection against heavy rain and flooding by Dr. Flood, Andreas Klippe.
So the big challenge is, how can house owners like you and me get a flood-free home? How can business managers like you and me get a flood-free company? And how can public servants provide flood-free critical infrastructure and livable cities?
Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast by Dr. Flood, Andreas Klippe. This podcast is for foresighted and proactive people who do not want to shovel the muddy water out of their room while standing in the midst of the disaster.
Therefore, those who design and plan, the architects and engineers, need to construct such buildings and cities, and that even when the entire environment is completely flooded. That is a challenge, and this podcast will give the answers.
Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast by Dr. Flood, Andreas Klippe.
Hello listeners, I am Andreas Klippe and this is the Christmas edition. That's why I called it Flooding at Christmas. Can we expect to celebrate Christmas underwater? Here are some hard facts and details about significant flooding and heavy rain events during the Christmas season in various regions. And perhaps you remember it very well. Christmas 2013 in the United Kingdom, in Europe. So the eastern area was affected, the southeastern and the southern England. And over the Christmas period, a powerful storm struck, leading to significant flooding. Rivers burst their banks due to heavy rainfall and strong winds. And the floods caused extensive damage to homes and infrastructure, resulting in millions of pounds in damages and significant disruption during the holiday season. Christmas 2015, only 2 years later, South America, in Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay and Brazil, major cities and towns along the Paraguay River, including Asunción, the capital of Paraguay, and prolonged heavy rains caused the Paraguay River to rise to record levels. I always hear that, record levels. Everything is a record now when it comes to weather, and leading to the worst floods in decades. More than 160,000 people were displaced during the holidays, and homes, crops and infrastructure suffered extensive damage. Let's go back, and who can ever forget this event on December 26, 2004 in South Asia? The tsunami impact. Coastal areas around the Indian Ocean, including Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, India and the Maldives. And while not caused by rainfall, the tsunami on December 26, 2004 led to catastrophic flooding. Damages: over 230,000 lives were lost and entire communities were washed away, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters in modern history. I hope these numbers are correct, but it was really everybody has seen and has watched these images. It's terrible. Christmas 1996, the Pacific Northwest of the USA, in Oregon and Washington states, heavy rainfall and the rapid melt of a significant snowpack caused widespread flooding. You can see there are different reasons sometimes for flooding. Extensive flooding damaged homes, infrastructure, and resulted in several deaths. Economic losses were also significant. That is always the result at every flooding incident. And then Christmas 2010. We talk about the Christmas season today. And you must not be Christian to listen to this podcast episode, because it concerns should concern everybody, independently of your religion. Christmas 2010 in Queensland, Australia. Large parts of Queensland, including towns and cities such as Rockhampton, Bundaberg, and Emerald. I hope I pronounced it well. Persistent heavy rains led to flooding across the state, which lasted into January 2011. So very, very long already. Yeah? So that is more than 1 week. Huh? That is what people sometimes forget. They think, the rain perhaps lasts only 1, 2, 3 days. That is very often the case. But quite often, remember the flooding in Pakistan. That was not during Christmas, but the areas in the country were flooded more than 1 year and even longer. These were some examples at Christmas, around Christmas. These events highlight how significant rainfall and flooding have impacted various regions around the world during the Christmas season, and disrupting celebrations and causing extensive damages. As of the latest available data, 2024 has indeed been one of the warmest years on record globally. Here are some key points that you might consider incorporating into your podcast, into your podcast episode. Here are some key points that you might consider incorporating into your measures or into the action that you might undertake or not undertake that you might do in the near future when it comes to flood protection solutions. So I have summarized 5 key points. The record temperatures. Multiple regions around the world have experienced the highest temperatures ever recorded in 2024. Emphasizing a continued trend of global warming. These temperatures rises contribute to more intense and frequent extreme weather events, including heavy rainfall and flooding. Number 2 is the impact of weather patterns. The increase in temperature has been linked to altered weather patterns, including changes in the jet stream. That is another topic. The jet stream is very important for long-remaining bad weather situations at one area, which can lead to prolonged periods of rain or drought in various regions. Both is possible, heavy rain and the drought as well. The instability increases the risk of sudden and severe flooding events. Number 3 is the sea level rise. 2024 has also seen significant sea level rise due to melting polar ice caps and glaciers, compounded by thermal expansion of seawater. Coastal areas are particularly vulnerable to flooding due to these rising sea levels, which can exacerbate the effects of tidal surges and storm events. Increased rainfall intensity is number 4. Studies from 2024 have shown that for many areas, the intensity of rainfall during storm events has increased. This is partly due to the fact that warmer air holds more moisture, which can lead to more significant downpours, increasing the likelihood of flooding. I will come back to this point in a moment. And number 5 is number 5 of the key points that might be considered when it comes to flood protection are the economic impacts. The economic repercussions of increased flooding are vast, with billions in damages reported globally in 2024. This includes damage to infrastructure, homes, and critical facilities alongside long-term economic disruptions. So, using these points, you can underscore the urgency of adopting robust flood protection measures. Transitioning from describing the problem to presenting solutions, you should discuss on your own or just follow those who talk about it. Perhaps here in this Flood Protection Secrets podcast, how modern flood protection technologies and planning strategies are essential to mitigate these heightened risks. Everything leads into a discussion about the effectiveness of various flood barrier systems and the importance of community preparedness. Very often we observe that even in my home country in Germany, that villages, communities are simply not prepared because the mayors, the responsible people, but also the inhabitants, you and me, everybody, does not really take care about it as long as the sun shines and when the sky is blue and the sun is shining and we all enjoy life. Who thinks about rain? That is, by the way, true for the Middle East as well. It happens 1, 2, 3 times a year. Okay, in some areas, like in Oman, for instance, they have more cyclones. They call it cyclones. There's 5 cyclones making landfall, so they expect a little bit more rain than the other areas. But I forgot to mention the most important data that is responsible for all this heavy rain and flooding all around the world. I made a comment already before when I said, okay, I will come back to it. That is the increase in ocean temperatures. That is one of the major reasons, particularly in regions like the Mediterranean Sea. That is crucial when talking about the impact of climate change on flooding. And here are some additional points to consider it for your flood protection or for your future, for your decisions, perhaps where to build a house, where to settle down, where to create your company, or where to build critical infrastructure when it comes to the investment of a country, of a municipality. Ocean temperatures rise. The Mediterranean Sea, I think the average increase is more than 2 degrees already. In total, the ocean has increased by about 1.9 degrees Celsius since the start of recording the weather data at the end of the 19th century, around 1870 or so. So the Mediterranean Sea is already almost at 2 degrees higher, and these 1.9 degrees. Now, the Mediterranean Sea is above 2 degrees. And that is a significant warming. And this increase in sea temperatures can enhance the evaporation rates. That is like you boil your coffee water or your tea water in the morning. The longer you wait, the more vapor you produce because the evaporation process accelerates and until the water is boiling. And that means that some of the water you have filled in your cup, in your pot, is evaporating. So it's always a good idea to put a little bit more water inside, because during the evaporation process you lose water because it's evaporating. And that is the same what happens in the sea. In the ocean, the water is evaporating, contributing to higher humidity levels in the atmosphere, and which then fuels more intense rainfall events when the conditions are right. Number 1, ocean temperature rise. Second, cyclonic activity. The warmer waters of the Mediterranean have been linked to increased cyclonic activity, and these cyclones can lead to severe weather events, including heavy rains that may result in flash flooding, or especially in coastal or nearby inland areas. I use the name cyclonic activity. At the end, the cyclone is how they call it around the Mediterranean Sea. In Southeast Asia, they call it typhoons, and the Caribbean Sea, they call it hurricanes. But it is all the same thing. And number 3 is the impact on regional climate. So I mentioned already the warming of the Mediterranean Sea is not only affects the local weather patterns, but also influences broader atmospheric systems across Europe and neighboring regions. This can lead to altered precipitation patterns, potentially increasing the occurrence of unexpected heavy rainfall during times typically known for milder weather, like around Christmas. And Last but not least, number 4, environmental and economic implications. The rise in ocean temperatures and the impact on regional weather are significant, not just for natural ecosystems, but also for local economies reliant on agriculture, tourism, and fishing. These sectors can be particularly vulnerable to the whims of changing weather patterns and extreme events. Integrating this data about ocean temperature increases, particularly in the Mediterranean Sea, it was one of my examples, helps paint a fuller picture of the climatic shifts contributing to flooding risks. This enhances the narrative about the need for comprehensive flood protection strategies that account not only for riverine floods, but also for those originating from extreme coastal weather events exacerbated by warmer ocean temperatures. The UNESCO reported in their UNESCO's State of the Ocean Report 2024. Rate of the ocean warming doubled in 20 years. Rate of the sea level rise doubled in 30 years. After all this bad data and weather observations, one question should be allowed. Can we expect to celebrate Christmas underwater? While I record this podcast episode, it's close to Christmas, and that is why I asked this question. Can we expect to celebrate Christmas underwater? Yes and no. It depends on where you live and whether it rains exactly on this Christmas in December. I gave you some examples at the beginning of this podcast episode about all these flooding issues, all these heavy rain incidents around Christmas. And due to different reasons, heavy rain, there was a tsunami in 2004, and also melting snow in the US. These were different reasons, but the result was always the same thing. Buildings were damaged and people were suffering. The weather is, by the way, let me say it this way. I talk about Christmas because while I record this episode, it is just close to Christmas. And you should not forget the weather is not religious, nor does it care about us, the people. It will rain if the weather conditions are suitable. And it will also rain harder if the temperature, wind and air pressure conditions are right for it. So what is the solution? There's only one solution for now and for the future. Protect yourself and your possessions, your belongings, the belongings you bought with your hard-earned money. There are three different target groups. The first is a homeowner who has invested his hard-earned savings. Yeah, that's me. I have invested my hard-earned savings in a house. And the second is the entrepreneur who has invested his hard-earned money in his company. By the way, that also fits for me. I have invested in my flood protection company and my another marketing and sales company. And so everybody who has invested his hard-earned money budget in the company, that is the group number 2. And the group number 3 is the state, the country, a nation that spends the money it earns on the country's infrastructure, in hospitals, for subway, airports, bus stations, schools, universities, libraries, and so on and so forth. So my conclusion, the summary at this end of this podcast episode, the weather doesn't care about religious festivals like Christmas, and 2024 was the warmest year since weather data was recorded around 1870. And we can assume that it will get even worse in the future. To avoid having to celebrate Christmas underwater, you should protect your buildings and belongings with modern flood protection technology. And at the very end, I will share and I will give you my golden nugget for you as a Christmas gift. See it this way. Before you invest in flood protection technology, check whether the product and engineering services deliver what they promise. Check before you invest whether the products and the engineering services deliver what they promise. Why engineering services? Because flood protection is not a supply. It is not like buying milk, a new car, or a machine. It is a philosophy, and you need an architect and engineer. The engineering service, that is, by the way, what I provide. That is a whole service, because it is like building a house. You cannot do that without an architect or an architectural knowledge, deep knowledge. Normally, you always need an architect for that, and you need engineers to calculate whether your house is stable or not. So please check that before you invest. And not every shiny metallic flood protection barrier is really watertight when it really matters. I like this one. Why? Very often people say, oh, that is expensive. We have a cheaper one. And then they realize that the cheaper one is only a shiny metallic sheet. But it will not withstand the power of water, of floating debris, of waves. You might say, I don't have waves in my city. You know, every truck, every bus that is passing by when there is water on the street is creating huge and powerful waves that destroy windows and entrance sections. And this additional power is very often not included in the design of standard flood protection barriers. So make sure that these things are included. Everything always looks rosy in the brochures, but the reality is different. So insist on a hydrostatic water test under real conditions. What is a hydrostatic water test? You just create a water reservoir in front of the installed flood barriers, fill it with water, and then check whether the barriers are doing the job or not. Okay, you don't have the waves. That is one thing. But for that, by the way, I'm distributing, we only use those barriers that did undergo an impact test with a wooden block of 40 kilograms, and then the barriers must withstand it without leaking for 72 hours. That is done by the world biggest insurance company, FM Global, for giving insurance contracts for industrial and commercial buildings. Anyway, that is a hydrostatic water test. And for the floating impact test, you just ask for the certificate from the insurance who have tested it. You can visit the production plant or at least a showroom of the supplier. Then you can see for yourself whether you have paid for cheap, but at the end expensive for you, for cheap junk, or you have received a truly certified flood protection solution. Yeah, if this flood protection episode, the Christmas episode, has inspired you to rethink your approach to flood protection, stay tuned for more episodes like this. And don't forget to subscribe for more insights from the world of flood protection. For personal guidance, reach out to us or to me. My name is Andreas Klippe. I wish all my listeners a Merry Christmas in peace and harmony and without heavy rain and flooding. Stay safe and flood free.
I wish and hope for you that you make the right decisions when it comes to your personal flood protection. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast channel if you haven't already. Now it only remains for me to wish you a good day. Do something with it. Maybe until the next podcast episode. I would be very happy. See you then. As always, stay safe and flood free. Your Andreas Klippe and the whole Flood Experts team.
That's it again with a new episode of Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast by Dr. Flood Andreas Klippe, German engineer, book author, and head of the Flood Experts. What can Dr. Flood Andreas Klippe protect for you? anytime, worldwide? Contact us or just click through to www.thefloodexperts.de/bonus. Detailed engineering, German quality, safe. Flood protection secrets. The secrets you'll want to unfold.
Don't forget, you're only one flood barrier away.
Subscribe to the season, and you'll never be late for an episode.